next Mississippi Roads, we'll be celebrating America's independence in style with hot air balloons and lots of amazing fireworks. Plus, plenty of actors have starred in plays at the Bay St. Louis Little Theater. But we'll show you how the theater itself became a star in its own right. We'll show you how one lady's journey as a photographer helped her spawn a magazine, and why the old Biloxi Schooner restaurant might be home to some strange occurrences.
Support for the arts segment of Mississippi Roads comes from the Mississippi Arts Commission, whose mission is to be a catalyst for the arts and creativity in Mississippi. Information available at www.arts.ms.gov.
Mississippi Roads is made possible in part by the generous support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Down Mississippi Road.
Hi, welcome back to Mississippi Roads. I'm your host, Walt Grayson. Every year, the Recreation and Parks Department in the town of Ridgeland opens up the balloon field right next to North Barton Hall for their annual Celebrate America Balloon Glow. The first balloon glow was held here in 1990, and every year since then. Balloonists and vendors set up in the park and get ready for a night of beautiful sights and great entertainment. And each year, like clockwork, thousands show up for the sights and sounds that make the night so special. And while the night features great food and live shows, what would a balloon glow be without, well, without balloons? We took a minute to talk to balloonist Ken Johnston.
It's the crowd, seeing the people, the expressions on their face, especially the little kids. They see the envelope come out of a bag and they don't know what to expect there. And then as they see we crank up the inflator fan and the balloon starts filling up with air, you can see their eyes open up. And then when you get it tight with what we call cold air, get it inflated while it's on the ground, step in there and light the burners, hit that burner, and the sound and the flame, that's when really their eyes open up and they see that balloon lift up in the sky and stand up. It's really, I get a kick out of watching the little ones see that.
While the balloons are getting all fired up here in Ridgeland, literally, in Bay St. Louis, the actors have been fired up for years. And then when disaster struck, it was the little theater itself that stepped into the spotlight. Bay St. Louis credits itself as Mississippi's artist community. And so one would expect the Bay St. Louis Little Theater to be a place for those artists to express their creativity, both on the stage and with what that stage was made of.
Our little theater, our red little theater of corrugated aluminum, were 2 CB barracks, and that formulated our theater, and it stayed that way, very rustic, really beautiful, in a beautiful location until Katrina.
Until Katrina. Many stories from the Mississippi Gulf Coast include that phrase. Red Metal Theater on Boardman Avenue was completely destroyed, along with the homes and businesses of much of Bay St. Louis. But even while they were rebuilding their personal lives, the theater community rallied together.
We took a piece of our corrugated aluminum and we spray painted on there, "The show must go on." And we leaned that up against a tree, and that was our statement to the community that we were going to come back. We might not have a building, but we were going to come back. Then for the next 5 years, we were the gypsies of the theater. We performed in bars, we performed in restaurants, we performed in churches, community centers, wherever we could do a show. Everybody here, they were rebuilding their lives personally. So rebuilding a community theater and pushing that purpose seemed a little frivolous when you've lost everything personally as well. But we were determined to rebuild the theater while we were rebuilding our lives personally too.
So why not just use what they already had?
As a board, we talked about, we have that land on Boardman Avenue, why don't we just build a building? And we all looked at each other one day and we said, you know, we could put a steel building up here and we could have a theater in 6 months. Our community has lost many buildings. Wouldn't it be neat if the community theater saved one of them and restored one of them? And that switched our whole outlook, and we started looking more and more into a building that we could save, restore, preserve.
So we probably looked at least 10, 15 different sites, and we did drawings for maybe 4 or 5 of them.
But finally, the old Scafidi building in the Depot District of Bay St. Louis seemed like the perfect choice.
Because of its history, it being one of the few remaining historic structures in the city of Bay St. Louis after Katrina, it's made it very valuable in a lot of people's eyes, including the board.
After the Bay St. Louis Little Theater was awarded grants from the Mississippi Arts Commission, Mississippi Department of Archives and History, and the Leo Seal family, the building was purchased and work began.
So we bought the building, and that day we came here and we stood on the first floor. It's a three-story building, and we looked at the sky and we said, what have we done? Because now we have really a terrible, decrepit, talk about this property should have been condemned building. We were living it. The refurbishing of the building started with the volunteers coming in and tearing everything off the walls down to the studs. And while we were doing that, 5 of us have fallen through this floorboards upstairs. So after we got the building open and refurbished it, we all signed the floor where we fell through. So John's name is up there, my name is up there, and it will just live in the history so people will know a lot of sweat and effort went into refurbishing the building.
The community continued to help the Little Theater, and in turn, the theater helped the community.
I think that process of actually seeing this place be rebuilt from the ground up and from the inside out just got people sort of salivating about the fact that, hey, something's coming back, and the Little Theater's coming back, and we're going to be awesome.
And come back it did. At the grand opening ceremony for the new space, about 100 people were expected, but the community really responded to the rebirth of the Little Theater.
And we had 1,200 people in our theater. You could not move. And it was so positive and exciting.
I think we hit a lot of hot buttons here with the building, with the location, with the sort of sentiment of saving the place, and with the old movie and tying all that stuff in. Plus we do great shows. So, you know, now we got full houses almost every show. So
the community continues to be involved, making up the board of directors, the actors, the techs, all volunteers.
We are now doing Still Magnolias. One of the people in the show, her name is Sarah Anderson. She is 16. She's our youngest cast member. We were in the green room one night talking about we're starting history at a new place and this is going to be wonderful. And Sarah was taking it all in, and Sarah said, well, you know, 60 years from now, I'll be able to tell this story because I'll still be here. And we all went, my gosh, she captured it. She captured the whole thing because, I mean, we wanted this to live, and she captured it.
The Bay St. Louis Little Theater does continue to live and thrive along with the community that helped rebuild it. And in that way, the show really does go on. The Celebrate America Balloon Glow, the 4th of July in Ridgeland, actually kicks off a couple of days earlier on Center Court at North Park Mall with a karaoke contest. They do a couple of rounds of karaoke, and the winner of the final actually gets to kick off the entertainment the night of the 4th on the main stage. Throughout the evening, vendors are on hand providing hungry attendees with various types of food, including festival favorites like barbecue, corn dogs, chicken on a stick, and of course, funnel cakes. Mississippi hosts more than its fair share of amazing events. If you're lucky enough to go to some of them, you've probably run into Mary Ann Todd. But you probably just took her as one of the other spectators walking around, snapping away with her camera, until you pick up Legends magazine and saw some of those same pictures published there. Because Mary Ann is the face behind and the creative force of that publication that covers pretty much everything in Mississippi.
All my life I'd had a fascination with photographs and with photography, and I remember as a kid saying, oh, one day I'm going to be a photographer, you know, but I didn't really realize that. I didn't really realize that I could actually do that. I was a military brat, and we were living in San Diego, and my mother is from Meriden, Connecticut. So when my parents put in for Meriden, Connecticut for their next move, they wound up in Meridian, Mississippi. Moving here as a kid, it was a culture shock. I didn't understand the language. You know, it was a culture shock. It took a bit of getting used to, but you know, I've been here all my life now, so I'm one of y'all.
While moving to Mississippi may have initially been a culture shock for Mary Ann, that same culture would later be a driving factor in her life.
I was pursuing, you know, mass communications type thing, transferred to Southern, and I thought, well, you know, when you get to Southern, you'll figure it out.
Upon arriving at Southern Mississippi, Mary Ann stumbled across the photojournalism department. And with that accidental discovery, she made the choice to focus on a career in photojournalism.
I got my first job at the Pensacola News Journal, which was a really good gig, fresh out of college. And I learned so much there. So everything I had learned at Southern had prepared me for, you know, hard news coverage at a newspaper, which is what I fell in love with doing.
With that skill, Mary Ann quickly found herself covering major news stories that would feature her work in news publications around the globe.
I photographed a lot of really poignant news stories in our nation's history. I've shot 9/11. You know, Katrina was the most horrendous news event I ever photographed, and I won't ever do it again. That was it. That was enough for me. I've done a lot of political work. Shooting for Governor Haley Barbour was a highlight of my career. I mean, getting to be the photographer for governor for 8 years, that was incredible. I got to photograph presidents. I photographed both Bushes. I found myself sitting in a small ranch house in the living room with the homeowner, President Bush, and Governor and Mrs. Haley Barbour, which was just a real surreal type of, you know, is this real? I mean, he's the president sitting right there in this living room, you know, it's kind of odd.
So after 8 years of working alongside the governor and meeting presidents and other powerful dignitaries, Mary Ann could have chosen to stay on the path of political photojournalism, but she already had a different direction in mind. One that would not only keep her working in the field she loves, but would also have a positive impact on Mississippi.
When I was coming off the last term with Governor Barbour, I knew that I was going to need a career shift then, because I wasn't going to continue down the same path in politics. I had already begun to publish a weddings magazine, and someone said to me, have you ever thought about publishing arts and entertainment in Mississippi? If you know, and I honestly hadn't really considered it a whole lot. When I started looking at the newsstands and looking around, we didn't have any publications that were dedicated to the arts in Mississippi, which is what we're all about. So then I launched Legends in 2009.
You know, I got an invitation to come down to her office, so I went down and sat in the little office there, and she was telling me what she was going to do, and quite honestly, I didn't believe her. I thought she was being overly optimistic, let's say. But lo and behold, when I saw the work product that she had done, I was frankly very impressed, and still am.
We're real excited about it when it comes out and we first look at it, and these things go home with people. There was nothing in the marketplace that's like it, and it's still not, that I'm aware of. I mean, not here in Mississippi. Mississippi being the birthplace of America's music, you know, music is a big, you know, part of what we do every day.
It very succinctly tells the story of Mississippi, not just musicians, but, you know, food and homes and people.
Actually, I started the publication because I thought, I saw a need for it in Mississippi. I saw a niche market for it, but I didn't really truly understand how badly it was needed until after I got into it. Perfect, that's what I need. Just, Michelle, move a little closer to him if you would, please. I've had people ask me, aren't you afraid you're going to run out of content? That looks really good. In Mississippi, are you kidding me? It's a renewable resource. I mean, we're growing this stuff all the time.
When you look at the people that's come through here, you know, Tennessee Williams, my gosh, Elvis Presley, Jimmy Rogers, nobody can match us. So how many pages is this going to be total? I was carrying my camera wherever I travel. A friend of mine, Rick Courtney, introduced me to Marianne one day. And I said, well, you know, I have to move around a lot. I'm going to Juke Joint Festival. I can shoot it if you like. Or either I'm going to Sunflower. I got, you know, some pretty cool photographs if you'd like, you know, me to contribute to the magazine.
You know, regionalize these stories that we can pull more people in from around the state.
It was kind of give and take a little bit at first. You know, she liked some of my work she critiqued me hard on, and some just like, oh, this is cool, this looks good. Probably first, second edition. It was relatively young.
Bobby Rush.
Once we started developing more trust, and then I helped a lot with the business reorganization. You know, we complement each other well on our skill sets. Marianne's a great editor, and I'm more out there, you know, in the public domain with what I do. We both have a tremendous amount of sweat equity in this magazine. It's a labor of love, you know.
We're growing in baby steps, which I think is the best way to do it.
It's still evolving, you know. We're not complacent. We're moving forward. We've done some cool stories, but we're going to continue to, you know, raise the bar every edition. You know, that's my goal.
Mississippi, frankly, has a story to tell, not just to Mississippians, but to the world at large.
And that's where the magazine comes in, not only with well-written articles about Mississippi's icons, but also with an eye-catching glossy cover, just waiting to tell yet another story about the truly legendary people who call Mississippi home.
Being a Mississippian, I sometimes criticize my state by saying that we don't tell our story. We need to tell our story because, frankly, it's an impressive story. As we all know, there's a lot of very, very, very talented people in Mississippi. And it does my heart good to see a capable person, regardless of what field of endeavor they're in. It does my heart good to see them succeed.
I want them to take away a sense of what we're really all about. Because of those stereotypes and because of the history and because of all the notions and the misconceptions that people have about Mississippi, being the bottom on the list, I'd like to overturn that. I'd like for people to view Mississippi as, you know, yeah, we do reach the bottom of some lists, but we reach the top on a lot of other lists. And that's what I want them to see.
Each year at the Celebrate America Balloon Glow in Ridgeland, about 20 balloonists show up to light up the night sky. It takes them about a half hour from the time they unpack their balloon and unroll it until the time they get it fully inflated. And that depends on the weather, of course, and on whether you're lucky enough to have a good crew. But once they get these things up, they really are beautiful. And in addition to just glowing, the balloonists have a little fun with the balloon flicker, or what some of the pilots call a balloon twinkle. And if you're wondering how pilots keep a balloon on the ground while keeping it inflated, our balloonist from earlier has the answer.
It's a fine balance as far as not too much heat where it wants to get light and take off, but yet we need to keep enough heat in it to where it stays inflated. And it's something I can feel it. You know, I feel the basket start rocking a little bit, and I know it's getting a little warm. And I may ask my crew members to put weight on. That means just go ahead and lean on the basket. You get a little weight on the basket to help hold it down there.
Well, every year about 20,000 people come here to Ridgeland for the Celebrate America Balloon Festival. People from all over the state come here to watch the balloon glow and then stay for the fireworks later. Now, meanwhile, down on the Gulf Coast, there's a restaurant where people from all over the state go for great seafood. Only problem is, there may be some people who've been there for a long, long time.
I originally opened the Schooner Seafood Restaurant back in 1983, December of '83. And the reason why I named it Old Biloxi Schooner, years ago, that's how they caught shrimp. You know, they didn't have motors and shrimp boats. They had big sails, and they'd drop these gigantic seine nets, and they'd circle them, you know, circle the net, sort of like a purse seine, and they'd pull it closed and 2 or 3 guys would pull the seine, the big net in, and that's how they caught shrimp and crabs and fish. I was down on the point, like I said, perfectly happy there for about 23 years or so, and Katrina wiped that building out. But about 6 months before Katrina, I happened upon this building by accident. I was running errands for the restaurant, coming back from the grocery store, and I actually ran out of gas.
And while Joe was waiting for someone to bring him gas, he noticed that the building was for sale, and so he bought it. And as luck would have it, it was left standing while his original restaurant was destroyed by Katrina. So Joe decided to move the restaurant to the new building, which was right across the street from a Catholic church that was built in the 1800s, a church with a beautiful statue of Mother Mary in the courtyard. And as it turns out, the building Joe bought had quite an interesting past.
It was built over on the site of an old funeral home. So kind of the thing started with someone watching me. Might have not have been Mother Mary, might have been someone in here watching me, you know.
Katrina, in all her might and fury, had slung the Grand Casino barge across the highway and into a parking lot. Joe saw an opportunity to rescue some of the fixtures from the casino and turn them into part of the decor of the restaurant. The lights, the marble counter, even the ceiling came from the casino. But restoring the building only seemed to stir up more than just dust and dirt.
Because, you know, as I was restoring the building, different things would happen. Like here's one instance, I was installing the ceiling, you know, replacing it and refurbishing it, and I was working really late one night. It was like midnight, and I was by myself. And I was trying to finish the ceiling that night because the painters was coming in the next morning to paint, and I heard someone whispering. And so I kind of stopped and I kind of listened, and I heard them whispering saying, "What's he doing?" And I heard it 3 times in a row, "What's he doing?" And the third time they said, "What's he doing?" Then another voice said, "I don't know." So about that time, I was down off the scaffold, and I didn't get my ceiling painted the next day, believe me.
And Joe wasn't the only one to witness the weird occurrences at the restaurant.
And then in the morning, some of the waitresses, when they come in early, you know, Jocko in the kitchen, sometimes he just gave up. He just thought he had voices going on in his head, you know what I mean? But, you know, the waitresses would come out here, and one waitress said she would see somebody sitting at like booth 6, and she'd fix a coffee and all that, and she'd bring it to the table, and nobody was there. She said it happened a bunch.
I was doing something by the register, counting money or something, and I heard something. And I went over to see what it was because it sounded like something fell, and there was crackers on the floor. And I said, "Oh, no, I'll get it." They were picking up crackers. And the guy said, "We didn't do it." He said, the crackers were on the other side of the table, and they flew across the table and hit the floor, and their eyes were like huge.
One guy says, you know, that the pots just will start swinging, or, you know, but...
My friend that worked here with me, I come in one morning, and she was really, I mean, she was pale. She said, "You wouldn't believe what happened." She said, "I heard something, and I looked up, and from the other room, walking into this room, there was a lady, and she was in a long gown, and it was just the image of her, and it was an old-timey dress, and she said she just walked across the front and walked back, and I was like, you know, it scared me to death." So, I mean, things like that would happen.
I guess it goes back to, you know, I discussed with you about some of the different businesses that have been in here, and they said it had been a mortuary and a funeral home.
But who knows? Maybe the spirits and spooks just heard there was a good place to eat. After all, that's what's been drawing the living to the restaurant for 3 decades.
And I've been coming here probably since Joe opened the store down on the point for Hurricane Katrina. About probably 25 years, 26 years I've been with Joe. Fresh seafood, you know, the gumbo's out of this world. His mom has been making that, got a secret recipe. She's been doing it for, like I said, probably since she was born back in the days, you know. But as kids growing up on the point down here, we've always, you know, known it as a schooner. We probably eat it twice a week.
So our regular menu, you know, we mainly specialize in our gumbo. Our seafood gumbo is great. Our po' boys in general are one of our best sellers on the menu. Crab meat and cheese is probably the best seller.
The crab meat and cheese and the seafood gumbo pretty much put us on the map.
Can't go wrong with
I think because nobody has it. It's such an odd po' boy. People come in and they'll ask you because they've never been here. So what do you recommend? The crab meat and cheese, and they look at you kind of funny from the get-go.
Yeah.
Crab and cheese that don't. Look at them. Look, if you don't like it, you ain't got to pay for it. And I'll tell a lot of them that I can't go wrong, you know. So they get the crab meat and cheese, and it comes out. And by the time you get back to ask them how it was, it's gone. I mean, they're making cheese off their finger, and you kind of you're like, man, I never would have thought of it.
So when you find yourself haunted by hunger pains, needing to scare up something to eat, the old Biloxi Schooner off Howard Avenue has a booth waiting for you. And if you catch something out of the corner of your eye, well, it may be your server bringing you a plate of fresh seafood, or it may be a shadow, or just the light playing tricks on you. Light has a way of doing that here. And regrettably, that's all the time we have for tonight's show. You got a question about anything you've seen? Contact us at mpbonline.org/Mississippi Roads or join our Facebook page. Till next time, I'm Walt Grayson. I'll be seeing you on Mississippi Roads.
Mississippi Roads is made possible in part by the generous support of viewers like you. Thank you.